It was 3 in the morning, and the temperature had dropped to freezing. Serena stood on the curb of the sprawling Sterling estate, shivering not from the cold, but from shock. In her arms was Leo, only 4 days old. The heavy iron gates slammed shut behind her, locking her out of the life she had built for 2 years. Her mother-in-law's screeching voice still rang in her ears. "Take your bastard and get out. We don't run a charity for gold diggers." Serena looked up at the mansion's windows, glowing with warmth, where her husband stood watching and did nothing. She wiped rain from her eyes and reached into her pocket, pulling out a phone that contained a contact named the chairman. She dialed. It was time to remind the Sterlings who actually paid for the roof over their heads. The Sterling family estate in the affluent suburb of Winnetka, Illinois, was a monument to old money, or at least the appearance of it. Inside the limestone walls, the air was always cold, maintained at a brisk 68 degrees by Victoria Sterling, the matriarch who believed comfort was a sign of weakness. Serena Vance, technically Serena Sterling, though no one in the house used her married name with any respect, was on her hands and knees in the foyer. She was 9 months pregnant. Her ankles were swollen to the size of grapefruits, and her lower back throbbed with a dull, rhythmic ache that signaled her body was nearing its breaking point. Yet, she was scrubbing a scuff mark off the marble floor because the maid, Maria, had been fired by Victoria that morning for insolence. "Mr. Spot," a voice clipped from the top of the grand staircase. Serena paused, taking a ragged breath before looking up. Victoria Sterling stood there, draped in a vintage Chanel robe, a glass of Chardonnay in hand, despite it being only 11:20 a.m. Next to her was Jessica, Serena's sister-in-law, who was scrolling through Instagram and barely suppressed a giggle. "I'm doing my best, Victoria," Serena said, her voice steady but quiet. She struggled to push herself up, using the wall for support. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, knocking the wind out of her. "Your best represents the mediocrity of your upbringing," Victoria sneered, descending the stairs. "My son, Mark, marries a nobody from a trailer park in Ohio, and suddenly I have to tolerate substandard hygiene in my own home. You should be grateful we let you stay here. Most women like you would be on the street." "I'm his wife, Victoria." "Not a charity case," Serena replied, wiping her hands on her apron. "You're an incubator," Jessica chimed in, not looking up from her phone. "Once the heir is born, you become significantly less necessary." Serena bit her tongue. It had been like this for 2 years. When she met Mark Sterling, he had played the part of the charming, misunderstood prince of a failing dynasty. He had swept her off her feet, claiming he wanted a simple life away from his mother's control. But the moment they married, he had moved them right back into the Sterling manor, claiming it was temporary until the family business, Sterling Motors, recovered from its financial slump. That slump had lasted 2 years, and Serena, with her mysterious remote job that she never discussed, had quietly paid off 3 of Mark's credit cards. Not that they knew. To them, she was just a penniless freelancer. Just then, the front door opened. Mark walked in, looking disheveled in his suit. He had been networking at the Chicago Yacht Club, which usually meant drinking expensive scotch on a tab he couldn't afford. "Mark," Serena exhaled, waddling toward him. "Please, I think the contractions are starting. I need to go to the hospital soon." Mark loosened his tie, his eyes avoiding hers. He looked at his mother, who raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Don't be dramatic, Serena," Mark muttered, brushing past her toward the liquor cabinet. "Mum says first labors take days. You're fine." "I'm in pain, Mark, real pain," Serena insisted, clutching her stomach as a sharp cramp seized her. Victoria laughed, a dry, brittle sound. Look at her, Mark. Always the victim. She just doesn't want to cook dinner. We have the mesmerizing gala for the shareholders next week, and the house is a mess. If she leaves now, who manages the caterers? I am having your child. Serena's voice rose, cracking with desperation. Mark slammed his glass down. Stop yelling. God, you're embarrassing. If you need to go so bad, call an Uber. I have to discuss the merger with Mum. Sterling Motors is on the brink, Serena. Do you understand stress? Real stress? Not just my back hurts stress. Serena stared at him. The man she loved. The man she had bailed out of debt secretly 3 times. He looked at her not with love, but with annoyance. Fine, Serena whispered. I'll handle it myself. Like I handle everything else. She grabbed her hospital bag, which she had packed weeks ago, and walked out the front door into the biting November wind. She didn't call an Uber. She called a private car service, a black Escalade that arrived in 3 minutes. The driver, a burly man named Frank, who had been her silent protector for years, opened the door. To Northwestern Memorial, Miss Vance? Frank asked, his eyes concerned as he saw her face pale with pain. Yes, Frank. And call the legal team, Serena said, gripping the leather seat as a contraction tore through her. Tell them to pause the acquisition of Sterling Motors. I want to see how they survive the week without the investor money. Understood, Mum. As the car pulled away, Serena looked back at the mansion. They thought she was weak. They didn't know that the angel investor, keeping their company afloat, wasn't a bank in Switzerland. It was the woman scrubbing their floors. The labor lasted 24 hours. It was a grueling, solitary battle. In the sterile luxury of the private suite at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, paid for by Serena's private accounts, not Mark's insurance, Serena screamed into a pillow while nurses held her hand. Her husband wasn't there. Her mother-in-law wasn't there. She had texted Mark 5 times. 12:15 p.m. I'm admitted, it's happening. 4, said p.m. Mark, please come. The doctor is worried about the baby's heart rate. Whacked p.m. I need you. 2 a.m. He's born. His name is Leo. The only reply she received was a thumbs-up emoji at 10:00 a.m. the next morning, followed by, busy with the board. Mum is freaking out about the merger stalling. Don't bother us right now. Serena looked down at the tiny infant sleeping in the plastic bassinet next to her bed. Leo had dark hair like Mark, but he had her fierce, determined chin. She traced his tiny cheek with her finger. It's just us, Leo, she whispered, tears hot and angry tracking down her face. They don't deserve you. 3 days passed in the hospital. Serena recovered in silence. She received flowers from her business partners in Tokyo, a fruit basket from her attorney, and a congratulatory card from the janitorial staff of her own holding company, Vanguard Dynamics. From the Sterlings. Silence. On the 4th day, she was discharged. Frank picked her up again. Where to, Miss Vance? A hotel? Frank suggested gently, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. You don't have to go back there. Serena tightened her grip on the baby carrier. No, Frank. I need to go back. I need them to make the mistake. I need them to seal their fate. If I leave now, they play the victim. They'll say I kidnapped the heir. I need them to throw me out. Frank nodded grimly. As you wish. But I'll have the team on standby. When Serena walked back into the Sterling mansion, the house was chaotic. It was the evening of the pre-gala dinner. Waiters were rushing back and forth with trays of hors d'oeuvres. Victoria was in the foyer, screaming at a florist about the shade of the hydrangeas. When she saw Serena enter, holding the baby carrier, she didn't smile. She checked her watch. You're back, Victoria said, her tone implying disappointment. And you brought it. His name is Leo, Serena said, her voice hoarse. "He's your grandson." Mark appeared from the living room, holding a tumbler of whiskey. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He glanced at the baby, then at Serena. There was a flicker of shame, but it was quickly drowned out by irritation. "You picked a hell of a time to come back, Serena," Mark said. "The investors halted the funding. We are bleeding cash. I'm about to lose the company, and you're walking in here expecting a welcome parade?" "I just had surgery, Mark. I have a newborn," Serena said, putting the carrier down carefully. "I don't expect a parade. I expected my husband." "Don't be selfish," Jessica shouted from the couch. "Do you know how embarrassing it is? We might have to sell the Aspen house, and you're just standing there looking frumpy." Victoria walked over to the baby carrier. She peered inside, her lip curling. "He's small, weak-looking. Probably takes after your side of the family. The Sterling men are born strong." Serena stepped between Victoria and the baby. "Don't talk about him like that." Victoria laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "I'll talk how I want in my house, which reminds me, we need to make some cuts. Since Mark's trust fund is frozen until the merger goes through, we can't afford extra mouths to feed." Serena froze. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Victoria smiled cruelly, "that this nursery you set up is ridiculous. We're turning that room into a home office for Mark. He needs space to save the business. You can sleep in the guest quarters. The ones in the basement." "The basement?" Serena asked, disbelief washing over her. "It's damp. It's freezing. I have a 4-day-old infant." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you trapped my son into marriage," Victoria spat. "Go downstairs, Serena, and keep that thing quiet. If I hear one cry during the dinner tonight, you'll wish you stayed in the hospital." Serena looked at Mark. He was staring at his shoes, swirling the ice in his glass. "Mark?" she asked. "Just do what she says, Serena," Mark mumbled. "It's only for a while, until I fix the company." Serena picked up the carrier. A cold resolve settled in her chest, replacing the heartbreak. The tears stopped. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll go downstairs." She went down to the damp, unfinished basement room that smelled of mold. She set up a makeshift crib for Leo using blankets. She sat in the darkness, listening to the laughter and clinking glasses upstairs as the Sterlings entertained their high society friends. She pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. She navigated to the corporate account for Vanguard Dynamics. The balance displayed was a number with 9 zeros. She scrolled to the Acquisitions tab. There was a pending file named Project Sterling, Hostile Takeover. Status: paused. Serena's thumb hovered over the Resume button. "Not yet," she whispered to sleeping Leo. "Let them dig the grave a little deeper." The basement air was thick and smelled faintly of heating oil and damp concrete. Serena had found an old space heater in a storage closet, but it barely made a dent in the subterranean chill. She sat on the edge of the cot, wrapped in 3 layers of old blankets she'd scavenged, holding Leo close to her chest to share body heat. Upstairs, the sounds of the pre-gala dinner party drifted down through the floorboards, the muffled clinking of fine crystal, polite laughter, and the smooth jazz playlist Mark had curated to impress the potential investors who hadn't yet fled the sinking ship of Sterling Motors. It was 10 p.m. Leo had been fussy for an hour, his tiny cries echoing strangely against the cinder-block walls. Serena touched his forehead. It was burning hot. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through her exhaustion. She unwrapped him slightly. His breathing was shallow and fast. The dampness of the basement was affecting his lungs, already fragile from a stressful birth. "Shh, Leo, it's okay," she whispered, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Mummy's here." She needed the infant Tylenol she had left in the upstairs nursery bathroom before being banished. She also needed a working thermometer. She texted Mark. "Mark, Leo has a fever. The basement is too cold for him. I need to bring him upstairs just for tonight. Please." She waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. She could hear his muffled voice directly above her, laughing at someone's joke. He was checking his phone. She knew he was. He was ignoring her. Leo let out a wheezing cough that rattled in his tiny chest. That was it. Serena couldn't wait any more. Clutching Leo tightly in his blanket bundle, she climbed the narrow wooden stairs that led to the kitchen hallway. She opened the door cautiously. The warmth of the main house hit her like a physical blow, smelling of roasted duck and expensive perfume. She tried to slip unnoticed toward the back staircase leading to the second floor, but the universe was not on her side. The double doors to the dining room swung open, and a waiter backed out, followed immediately by Victoria. Victoria stopped dead. She was resplendent in an emerald green silk gown, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. Her eyes, however, were harder than the stones she wore. "What?" Victoria hissed, closing the distance between them in 3 swift strides. "Are you doing out of your hole?" "Leo is sick," Serena said, holding her ground though her legs trembled. "He has a fever. The basement is freezing, Victoria. He can't breathe properly down there. I just need to get his medicine from the nursery." "You are interrupting an event that determines the future of this family," Victoria whispered furiously, her manicured nails digging into her palms. "Do you know who is in there?" "Senator Davies, the CEO of Omnicorp, people who hate weakness. And here you are, looking like a homeless person with a sickly child." "He's your grandson. He needs help." "He is a mistake," Victoria spat. "A mistake my son made when he was drunk on your cheap charm." Just then, Mark appeared in the dining room doorway, looking flushed with wine and false confidence. He saw Serena and his face fell. "Serena, what the hell are you doing? I told you to stay downstairs," Mark hissed, glancing nervously back at his guests. "Mark, your son has a fever. He's wheezing," Serena pleaded, turning to her husband. "Look at him." Mark didn't look at the baby. He looked at his mother's furious face. "God, Serena, why do you always have to make everything about you?" Mark ran a hand through his hair. "Mum is right. You're being hysterical. Babies get fevers. Just take him back downstairs and wrap him in another blanket. Stop being so dramatic." Serena stared at him. It was a clarifying moment. The last thread of hope she held that Mark was just misguided, just under his mother's thumb, snapped. He wasn't a victim. He was a co-conspirator in cruelty. "He could die down there, Mark," Serena said, her voice deadly quiet. "Get out of my sight," Victoria commanded, pointing to the basement door. "If I hear one more sound from you tonight, you won't even have the basement." Serena looked at the two of them, the porcelain dolls in their ivory tower, rotting from the inside out. "Okay," Serena said. The word was devoid of emotion. She turned and walked back to the basement door. As she descended into the dark, she heard Victoria apologize to the guests for the disturbance with the help. Back in the freezing dark, Serena rocked Leo. She used her own body heat, unbuttoning her shirt to hold him skin to skin under the blankets. She stayed awake all night, listening to his breathing, praying the wheezing wouldn't get worse. She didn't cry tonight. The time for tears was over. The Sterlings had shown her exactly who they were. Tomorrow, she would show them who she was. The storm rolled in around 2:00 a.m. It started as freezing rain, tapping against the small, ground-level window of the basement, before turning into a full deluge mixed with sleet. The temperature plummeted. Serena hadn't slept. Leo's fever had broken slightly around 4 a.m., and he was finally sleeping peacefully against her chest. The basement was now unbearably cold. She could see her breath in the dim light of her phone screen. At 5:30 a.m., the basement door at the top of the stairs flew open with a crash that made Serena jump, nearly waking the baby. Victoria stood there, silhouetted by the hallway light. She was still in her emerald gown, though now it looked rumpled, her hair slightly askew. She clearly hadn't slept either, powered by adrenaline and rage. Behind her stood Jessica, smirking in a silk bathrobe, holding a lukewarm cup of coffee. "Up, now!" Victoria barked. "Victoria, it's 5 a.m, Serena whispered hoarsely. "I don't care what time it is. I want you out of my house, now." Serena slowly stood up, clutching Leo. "What?" "You heard me. The dinner was a disaster. Senator Davies left early because he said the house had bad energy." "You did that. Your presence poisons everything," Victoria ranted, her voice shaking. "I will not lose my company because my idiot son married trash. Pack your things. You're leaving." "Victoria, it's freezing rain outside. I have a 4-day-old baby who was sick last night. You can't just throw us out." Serena tried to keep her voice calm, but fear was beginning to spike. "Watch me." Victoria descended the stairs, grabbing the 2 duffel bags Serena had yet to fully unpack. She began wildly throwing Serena's clothes onto the dirty concrete floor. "Get your rags and get out." Mark appeared at the top of the stairs. He was wearing sweatpants, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Mark!" Serena cried out, looking up at him. "Stop her! She's throwing us out in a storm!" Mark looked down at the scene, his mother rampaging through his wife's belongings, his wife clutching their newborn in a damp basement. He sighed, a sound of deep inconvenience. "Mum, maybe wait until the rain stops," Mark suggested weakly. "Shut up, Mark!" Victoria snapped without looking at him. "If you had a spine, you would have done this months ago. This leech is draining us dry. We need to focus on the merger, not babysitting." She turned to Serena, kicking a pile of sweaters toward her. "You have 10 minutes. Anything left behind goes in the incinerator." Victoria stomped back upstairs, followed by Jessica, who offered a sarcastic pout and a wave. "Bye-bye, gold digger." Serena looked up at Mark one last time. He wouldn't meet her eyes. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled wad of cash, maybe $300. He tossed it down the stairs. It landed in a puddle of water near her feet. "Just go to a Motel 6 or something, Serena," Mark mumbled. "I'll call you in a few days when Mum calms down. It's for the best. We need space." He closed the door, plunging the basement back into near darkness. Serena stared at the money in the puddle. A strange calm washed over her. The final shackle had just been broken. 10 minutes later, Serena walked out the side door of the mansion. She was wearing everything warm she owned. Leo was bundled inside her coat, protected from the biting sleet. She carried one duffel bag over her shoulder. The heavy iron gates of the Sterling estate groaned as they automatically swung shut behind her, locking with a resounding clang. She stood on the curb. The wind whipped her wet hair across her face. She looked back at the house. The warm glow of the lights seemed mockingly distant now. They were warm. They were safe. They thought they had won. Serena reached into a deep coat pocket, past the baby wipes and pacifiers, and pulled out a sleek, black satellite phone that Mark had never seen. It was her emergency-only line. This was an emergency. She dialed a number from memory. It rang once. "Mr. Henderson," Serena said, her voice clearer and stronger than it had been in 2 years. The facade of the meek Ohio girl evaporated into the freezing rain. "Serena, my God, where are you? It sounds like a hurricane." Smooth, professional voice of Marcus Henderson, her chief legal counsel at Vanguard Dynamics, answered. I'm outside the Sterling estate. I've been evicted. A stunned silence on the other end. They evicted you? With the baby? In this weather? Yes. Marcus, I'm done waiting. The observation phase is over. Understood. What are your instructions for Project Sterling? Serena looked up at the second-floor window, where she knew Victoria's bedroom was. Kill it, Serena commanded. Pull the plug. I want all funding from the angel investor shell company withdrawn immediately. Call in the bridge loans we issued last quarter. They have 24 hours to pay in full, or we seize collateral. The collateral is the estate and the intellectual property of Sterling Motors, Marcus clarified, the excitement audible in his voice. Exactly. Freeze their corporate accounts. Alert the SEC about the irregularities in their last quarterly report, the ones I conveniently didn't fix for them. And Marcus? Yes, Chairwoman. Leak it to the press. I want Sterling Motors insolvency on the front page of the Wall Street Journal by noon. Let everyone know they are radioactive. A dark smile spread across Serena's face as the freezing rain lashed against her skin. Burn it down, Marcus. Burn it all down. The morning after Serena's eviction broke with a deceptive calm over the Sterling estate. The storm had passed, leaving the grounds glistening and wet. Inside, the mood was almost jubilant. Victoria Sterling sat at the head of the breakfast table, buttering a croissant with the precise, satisfied strokes of a woman who had just excised a tumor. The air feels lighter, doesn't it? Victoria remarked, taking a sip of her espresso. Without that sullen energy dragging us down, the house can finally breathe. Mark sat across from her, scrolling through his phone, looking less convinced. I guess. It feels a little quiet. Do you think she found a place? It was pretty rough out there last night. Oh, please, Mark, Jessica chimed in, piling berries onto her yogurt. She's a survivor, like a cockroach. She's probably back in Ohio by now, telling sob stories to anyone who will listen. Good riddance. Now we can focus on the gala tonight. The caterers are arriving at noon. Mark nodded, pushing his guilt down. Yeah, you're right. We need to focus. I need to check the accounts. The angel investor transfer usually hits by 9 a.m. on Tuesdays. Check it, Victoria commanded. Then call the florist. I want the lilies replaced. Mark opened his banking app. He frowned. The screen buffered, a spinning wheel of death that seemed to last an eternity. Finally, it loaded. Account balance, 0/0. Status, frozen. Compliance hold. See ref, SEC 4491. Mark blinked. He refreshed the page. The 0 remained, staring back at him like a blind eye. That's weird, Mark muttered. The app is glitching. What is it? Victoria asked, annoyed. It says 0 and... Frozen? Mark's voice pitched up. Let me check the business operating account. He swiped. Sterling Motors. Operating $450,000. Overdraft. Status. Locked. Mark, stop playing games, Victoria snapped. Call the bank. Mark's hands were shaking as he dialed the private client line for Sterling's longtime banker, Mr. Gable. It rang once, then went to voicemail. He tried again. This time, it was answered by a cold, unfamiliar voice. Legal Department, First National Bank. This is Agent Miller. Legal. No, I want Jerry Gable. This is Mark Sterling. Mr. Gable is no longer handling your accounts, Mr. Sterling. Your assets have been frozen pending an investigation into fraudulent collateral claims and insolvency. We received a notice of default from your primary creditor this morning. Creditor? What creditor? We don't have a primary creditor. We have an angel investor, Mark shouted, standing up. The holding company, Vanguard Dynamics, has called in all outstanding bridge loans effective immediately. Since you lack the liquidity to pay, they have initiated asset seizure protocols. Good day, Mr. Sterling. The line went dead. Mark dropped the phone. It clattered onto the expensive china plates. What? Victoria stood up, her face draining of color. What did you say? Vanguard Dynamics, Mark whispered, the name unfamiliar and terrifying. They called the loans. They froze everything. Mum, we have no money. Literally zero. That's impossible, Victoria shrieked. Get the angel investor on the phone. That contact Serena gave us. Call him. Mark fumbled for his contact list and found the entry. The chairman. He dialed. We're sorry. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Goodbye. At that exact moment, the lights in the dining room flickered and died. The hum of the refrigerator ceased. The heating system groaned and shut down. Jessica looked up from her phone, her face pale. Mum? The Wi-Fi just cut out, and someone is at the gate. Victoria ran to the window. Outside, a fleet of white trucks was pulling into the driveway. The side of the trucks read, Vanguard Asset Recovery. Men in jumpsuits were already hopping out, carrying clipboards and red tags. They can't come in here! Victoria screamed, rushing to the front door. She threw it open, nearly colliding with a tall man in a dark suit, holding a thick stack of papers. Mrs. Sterling? The man asked. Get off my property. I'll call the police. I wouldn't do that, ma'am, the man said calmly, handing her a document. This is a court order. Sterling Motors used this estate as collateral for the loans issued in 2023 and 2024. Since the loans are in default, the property is now under the stewardship of Vanguard Dynamics. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. Vacate? Victoria gasped, clutching the doorframe. This is my house. My family has lived here for 50 years. Not anymore, the man said, signaling to his team. Boys, start inventorying the artwork and vehicles. Nothing leaves this property. As the repo men pushed past a stunned Victoria, Mark sank onto the stairs, his head in his hands. Meanwhile, 20 miles away in downtown Chicago, the scene was very different. Serena sat in the penthouse suite of the Waldorf Astoria. The room was bathed in golden light, smelling of fresh orchids and expensive coffee. She was dressed in a tailored cream suit that cost more than Mark's car. Her hair was blown out, sleek and shiny. She sat in a plush armchair, feeding Leo a bottle of premium formula. A pediatric nurse, hired through an exclusive agency, waited nearby to burp him. On the massive, flat-screen TV on the wall, the news was playing. The headline scrolled in bold red. Sterling Motors crashes. Insolvency, scandal rocks Winnetka. Serena watched the footage. It showed news vans parked outside the Sterling gates. It showed a clip of Mark shouting at a cameraman, looking disheveled and frantic. Ms. Vance? Serena turned. Marcus Henderson, her lawyer, stood in the doorway, holding a tablet. The first phase is complete, Marcus said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. We've secured the liens. The electricity was cut an hour ago. The water will be next. The gala tonight has been cancelled. The caterers were informed that the check would bounce, so they pulled out. Serena smiled, wiping a drop of milk from Leo's chin. And the reaction? Panic, Marcus replied. Pure panic. They have been calling every number in their Rolodex. No one is picking up. You've become radioactive just as you requested. Oh, and Mark has tried to email your old freelancer address 12 times, asking for a loan. Let him beg, Serena said softly. She handed Leo to the nurse. Take him for his nap, please. He needs his rest. She stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the city. She felt a phantom ache in her lower back, a reminder of the cold basement floor she had slept on less than 24 hours ago. What is the next step, Chairwoman? Marcus asked. Serena watched the cars moving like ants below. Let them marinate in it for a week. Let them feel the cold. Let them feel the hunger. Let them sell their jewelry to buy groceries. When they are completely broken, send the invitation. The invitation? To meet the chairman of Vanguard Dynamics. Serena turned, her eyes glittering with cold fire. Tell them the chairman is willing to discuss a settlement, a way to save their name. They don't know it's you, Marcus grinned. No, Serena said. They think Serena Vance is a homeless, single mother freezing in a shelter. They have no idea they are about to walk into the lion's den. The week that followed was a slow, agonizing dismantling of the Sterling ego. It started with the small indignities. The country club membership was revoked. The housekeeper, the gardener, and the chef all quit on the same day when their direct deposits failed. By day 3, the house was freezing. The backup generator had run out of fuel, and they had no money to refill it. Victoria Sterling, the woman who once scolded a maid for a spot on the floor, was forced to heat cans of soup over the flames of the living room fireplace, burning antique chairs for warmth because they couldn't afford firewood. By day 5, the desperation turned into madness. "We have to sell the diamonds," Mark said, his voice hollow. He was wearing the same suit for the 3rd day in a row. "The pawn shop on 4th Street said they'd take them." "My mother's diamonds," Victoria wept, huddled under a mink coat on the sofa. "Mark, how did this happen? Who is doing this to us? It's a conspiracy." "It's Vanguard Dynamics, Mum, I told you," Mark snapped, pacing the room. "They own us. They own the debt. They own the house. We are squatters." "Why won't they meet with us?" Jessica whined. She was trying to charge her phone with a solar battery pack she found in the garage. "I can't even post about this. My followers think I'm on a digital detox." "Because we are nobodies to them," Mark said bitterly. "We are a bad investment." Just then, a bicycle courier arrived at the gate. He rang the manual bell since the intercom was dead. Mark walked down the long driveway in the rain to meet him. He returned 10 minutes later, clutching a thick envelope made of heavy, cream-colored paper. He walked into the living room, water dripping from his nose. "What is it?" Victoria asked, sitting up. "It's from Vanguard Dynamics," Mark said, his hands trembling as he tore the wax seal. He pulled out a letter. "To the Board of Directors of Sterling Motors, the Office of the Chairman of Vanguard Dynamics acknowledges your multiple requests for a dialogue regarding the liquidation of your assets. While the Chairman typically does not meet with debtors of your standing, an exception has been made due to the historical significance of the Sterling brand. You are hereby invited to the global headquarters of Vanguard Dynamics in Chicago tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. The Chairman will hear your plea for a restructuring deal. Failure to attend will result in immediate foreclosure and eviction by law enforcement. Signed, Office of the Chairman. Silence filled the cold room. "A meeting," Victoria whispered, hope flaring in her eyes like a match in the dark. "A chance. We can fix this," Mark said, a frantic energy seizing him. "We just need to explain. We need to charm him. This Chairman, he's a businessman. He'll understand that Sterling Motors has a legacy. We just need more time." "We need to look impeccable," Victoria commanded, standing up and shedding her blankets. "Jessica, find the best suits we have that aren't wrinkled. Mark, shave. We are going to walk in there like we still own the world. We are Sterlings. We do not beg. We negotiate." The next day, the Sterling trio arrived at the Vanguard Tower in downtown Chicago. It was a skyscraper of blue glass and steel that pierced the clouds, a fortress of wealth that made the Sterling estate look like a dollhouse. They took a cab, paying with the last of the cash they got from pawning Jessica's Cartier watch. They walked into the lobby. It was cavernous, silent, and intimidating. The security guards wore suits that fit better than Mark's. "We are here to see the chairman," Victoria announced to the receptionist, lifting her chin. "We have an appointment." The receptionist didn't even look up from her screen. Names? The Sterling family. Top floor. Private elevator. He is expecting you. They rode the elevator in silence. Mark's palms were sweating. Victoria fixed her hair in the reflection of the brass doors. Jessica was biting her nails. "Remember," Victoria hissed as the numbers climbed. 40, 50, 60. "Be confident. Do not mention the eviction. Act as if this is a temporary liquidity issue. We offer him a seat on the board. That will flatter him." "Right," Mark nodded. "Flattery. Confidence." The elevator doors opened with a soft ping. They stepped out into a reception area that spanned the entire floor. The view of Chicago was breathtaking. The furniture was modern, sleek, and screamed of billions. A woman in a sharp grey suit approached them. "Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, right this way. The board is assembled." "The board?" Mark gulped. "I thought it was just the chairman." "The chairman likes an audience," the woman said enigmatically. She led them to a set of massive double doors made of frosted glass. She pushed them open. The boardroom was enormous. A long table made of black obsidian stretched down the center. At the far end, a chair with a high back was turned away from them, facing the window. Seated along the sides of the table were 12 people, lawyers, accountants, and executives, all looking at the Sterlings with expressions ranging from amusement to pity. Victoria straightened her jacket. She walked in, her heels clicking on the polished floor. "Good afternoon," Victoria projected her voice, trying to summon the ghost of her old authority. "I assume you are the chairman. We appreciate you taking the time. We are here to discuss the misunderstanding regarding our accounts." The chair at the end of the table did not move. "There is no misunderstanding, Victoria," a voice said. The voice was amplified by the room's acoustics. It was a voice Mark knew. It was a voice he had heard whisper, "I love you," and scream in labor pains. But now, it was steel. Mark froze. "That voice—" "It can't be," Jessica whispered. The chair slowly swiveled around. Serena sat there. She was not the disheveled woman in the rain. She was a queen. She wore a white power suit that glowed against the dark room. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was sharp. And in her arms, resting comfortably against her shoulder, was Leo. She looked at them, her husband, her mother-in-law, her sister-in-law, with a gaze so cold it dropped the room temperature by 10 degrees. "Please," Serena said, gesturing to the 3 empty, small folding chairs set up at the opposite end of the table, far away from her. "Sit down." Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Serena." "What? What are you doing here? Where is the chairman?" Serena leaned forward, placing her hands on the obsidian table. "I am the chairman," she said. "I am the founder and majority shareholder of Vanguard Dynamics. I am the one who has been paying your bills for 2 years. I am the one you threw out into the rain." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "And now," Serena continued, "I am the one holding the axe." The silence in the boardroom was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens when the world tilts on its axis and gravity suddenly pulls in a different direction. Mark was the first to speak. His voice was a cracked whisper, trembling with a mixture of confusion and a desperate, clawing hope. "Serena, I don't understand. Is this a joke? Did you win the lottery?" He took a step toward her, his hands reaching out instinctively. "Babe, why didn't you tell me?" Serena didn't flinch. She didn't look at Mark. She looked down at Leo, adjusting his tiny sock. "Sit down, Mark. Security will remove you if you take another step." Two large guards stepped out from the shadows, their hands hovering near their belts. Mark froze, then slowly sank into the folding chair next to his mother. Victoria was shaking. Her face, usually a mask of haughty disdain, was crumbling. She looked at the woman she had treated as a servant, the woman she had forced to scrub floors while 9 months pregnant. "You can't be the chairman," Victoria stammered. You're from Ohio. Your father was a mechanic. You wore thrift store clothes." "My father owned a chain of 85 collision centers across the Midwest," Serena corrected calmly. "He lived simply because he believed wealth should be quiet. He taught me that money screams but wealth whispers. When he passed, I inherited everything. I turned that capital into vanguard dynamics. I was 22. She looked up, her eyes locking onto Victoria's. "I didn't tell you because I wanted to be loved for me, Victoria, not for my portfolio. And when I met Mark, I thought I found that. I thought I found a family." Serena's expression hardened. "I was wrong. I found parasites." "Parasites!" Jessica screeched, finding her voice. "We took you in. We gave you a roof." "I bought the roof." Serena slammed her hand on the table, the sudden noise making everyone jump except Leo, who simply stared. She signaled to Marcus, her lawyer. He tapped a button on his laptop, and the massive screen behind Serena lit up. It displayed a complex web of bank transfers. "Look closely," Serena commanded. "This is the financial history of Sterling Motors for the last 3 years. Here is the angel investor account, and here is the source of funds." The line traced back to a personal trust, the Serena Vance Revocable Trust. "Every time you bought a designer bag, Jessica, I paid for it. Every time you flew first class to Paris, Victoria, I approved the expense. And Mark, every time you saved the company with a last-minute injection of cash. That was me, transferring money from my savings to your business account while I sat in the next room pretending to knit." Mark looked at the screen, his mouth agape. The realization washed over him. The humiliation was total. He hadn't been a businessman. He had been a child on an allowance, unknowingly funded by the wife he had ignored. "I kept you afloat because I loved you, Mark," Serena said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I thought if I supported you, you would eventually become the man you pretended to be. But you didn't. You became small. And when I needed you most, when I was bleeding and holding our son, you became invisible." "Serena, please," Mark wept, tears streaming down his face. "I was scared. Mum, she pressured me. You know how she is. I love you. I love Leo. We can fix this. We're a family. You have all this money. We can live like kings. Think of Leo." "I am thinking of Leo," Serena said. "That is why I am divorcing you." She slid a thick folder across the long obsidian table. It stopped perfectly at the edge, right in front of Mark. "These are divorce papers," Serena stated. "I am suing for full legal and physical custody of Leo. I am also suing you, Victoria, and you, Jessica, for emotional distress, wrongful eviction, and endangerment of a minor." "You can't take my grandson," Victoria hissed, her survival instinct kicking in. "We will fight you. The Sterling name still means something in this town. No judge will give a child to a single mother who ran away." Serena laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. "The Sterling name?" Serena asked. "Marcus, show them the news." The screen changed. It showed a live feed of the New York Stock Exchange. The ticker for Sterling Motors was red, delisted. "I didn't just buy your debt, Victoria. I bought your brand. As of this morning, Sterling Motors no longer exists. I have dissolved the corporation. The assets, the factory, the patents, the inventory have been absorbed into Vanguard's electric vehicle division. Serena leaned back, looking like a judge delivering a death sentence. You have no company, you have no money, you have no house, and thanks to the footage from the security cameras at the gate, which I own, I have a video of you throwing a newborn baby into a sleet storm. I sent it to TMZ an hour ago. It has 3 million views. Victoria gasped, clutching her chest. You monster! I learned from the best, Serena replied. She stood up. The meeting was over. Here is the deal, Serena said, looking down at them. You will sign the divorce papers now. You will sign over full custody. You will sign a non-disclosure agreement that says you will never speak my name, or Leo's name, in public again. And if we don't? Mark asked, his voice shaking. If you don't, Serena said, walking toward the door, I will prosecute you for corporate fraud. I cooked your books, Mark, remember? I fixed your mess, but I kept the original copies. If I hand them to the SEC, you will go to federal prison for 10 years. Mark looked at the papers. He looked at his mother, who was sobbing into her hands. He looked at the luxury around him, the power that his wife wielded, the power he had thrown away because he was too weak to stand up to his mother. He picked up the pen. I'm sorry, Mom, Mark whispered. Mark! No! Victoria screamed. Mark signed. He signed away his son, his marriage, and his dignity. Serena watched him sign. She felt a pang of sadness, a mourning for the life she thought she would have, but it was quickly replaced by relief. She was free. Good, Serena said. She pressed a button on the intercom. Security, please escort the guests out. They are trespassing. Serena, wait, Mark cried as the guards grabbed his arms. Where will we go? We have nothing. Serena stopped at the door. She looked back at the family that had tormented her. I hear the Motel 6 is hiring housekeeping staff, Serena said. I suggest you start there. They appreciate people who know how to scrub floors. She walked out, the heavy glass doors closing behind her, muting their screams. As she walked down the hallway, Leo stirred in her arms and opened his eyes. He looked up at her, blinking. Serena smiled, pulling him close. It's just us now, Leo, she whispered, kissing his forehead. And we have a lot of work to do. The Sterling family was never heard from in high society again. Sterling Motors became a footnote in business textbooks, a cautionary tale of arrogance and mismanagement. Victoria moved to a small apartment in a neighboring state, living off a meager state pension. Mark tried to start over, but the reputation of the man who chose his mother over his wife and child followed him like a shadow. He never saw Leo again. As for Serena, she didn't just survive. She ascended. She took the pain of her past and built a future where no one could ever make her feel small again. She raised Leo to be strong, kind, and surprisingly humble for a boy who would one day inherit an empire. She taught him that true nobility isn't found in a bank account or a last name. It's found in how you treat people when you think no one is watching. The Sterlings thought they were throwing out the trash. They didn't realize they were throwing away the diamond to keep the box. Wow, talk about karma being served cold. It just goes to show you never really know who someone is until you see how they treat those they think are beneath them. Serena's story is a reminder to always stay humble and to stand up for yourself, no matter the odds. What would you have done if you were Serena? Would you have helped Mark in the end, or did he get exactly what he deserved? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justice and redemption, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a crazy real-life story like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.